Well, that is one of the best matches of rugby that I have ever seen. I think it's one of the best matches that the World Cup has ever seen. And the question that I want answered from All Black fans is best All Blacks performance since. When was the last time you saw New Zealand play that well? Because they were sensational. And I'm just outside the Stade de France as fans are starting to make their way out. A lot of them absolutely gutted, Ireland fans, and you can understand that. But the story from this game is two exceptional teams playing a brilliant, brilliant test match. As I say, I'll get on to Ireland, but drop a comment down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Let me know what you made of that quarter-final. And I am going to start with New Zealand because, as I've said already, they were excellent. And there were two things that I mentioned in my preview that I'm so glad that I did now. The number one was the front five, and in particular actually the front row, and how that was the biggest area of this All Blacks team that had changed since they played Ireland in that series last year in New Zealand when Ireland won 2-1. And the way in which New Zealand had brought new players through, I think massively came to the fore here, in that it was a different front five and they were able to meet the physicality of the Irish far better than they were on that tour. The other thing I mentioned was Sam Cane, and I know that many All Blacks fans think he shouldn't be the captain or shouldn't even be in the team. He was excellent tonight. He was unbelievable. And there was this whole thing, wasn't there, of the fact that on that tour Peter O'Mahony said that he was just a rubbish Richie McCaw, or words to that effect. And I felt like he would come out and make a statement. I felt like he would come out and try and put in a performance to guide his team towards an inspirational and famous win, and he absolutely did that. I thought he was excellent. He led from the front, as were that whole New Zealand pack. In fact, that whole New Zealand team. But Sam Cane, I think, deserves a lot of credit for that. And speaking of the wounds that this All Blacks team have had to suffer, that was on display at the full-time whistle. Was it Rieko Ioane or Ardie Savea? Number of the players I saw gesturing towards the crowd, cupping their ears, saying, can you make any more noise? All that sort of stuff. I think this is an All Blacks team that have taken it personally, the defeats to Ireland, have taken, oh, there we go, see, you can tell I set up quickly, we'll hold on to that, have taken the wounds personally. And I think we saw that. We saw that in their reaction, what it meant to them. And we saw that in their performance as well. So those two things I think were absolutely crucial. And also, I did mention in that video, and when I get things right, I might point it out. When I get things wrong, I will as well. Leicester Fainga'anuku, there were concerns about him coming in place of Mark Talea and whether he would be more of a defensive liability. Could not have been more wrong. He was also exceptional. And I think there were two areas tactically that I thought New Zealand got it absolutely spot on and that they really tried to target. Number one was that they were so direct, and in that 30 phases of attack they had in the Ireland 22 near the start of the game. By the way, how unreal were both of those periods? The end of the game, where Ireland I think got up to 35 phases, and near the start of the game as well. It was just two teams. How rare is that? When you have two teams that no one gives away a penalty, one team is able to keep hold of the ball, the other defence is able to keep them out. It was just breathless. But in that attack early on for the All Blacks, I felt like they were going very, very direct. I felt like they were keeping it in the pretty close channels, and it looked to be a tactic for me if they were just taking it straight up the gut of the Irish. And in the end, I think they actually got some pretty good results from that. The other thing on the other side of the ball was they went so hard at the Irish breakdown. In particular, early on, they went there, they got turnovers. Even if they didn't get the turnover, they did a great job in slowing the Irish ball down. I've got so many notes in front of me that what more can you say, really? Should we get on to Ireland? Everyone after this will talk about a quarter-final hoodoo, about Ireland not having the ability to get over a mental hurdle of a quarter-final, and I think that has nothing to do with this. Don't get me wrong, at times they look nervy, as you would probably expect them to do, given the fact that this is a World Cup quarter-final against a top team. They were put under pressure by an excellent New Zealand team, but I don't think the defeat here has anything to do with the fact that Ireland have never got past the quarter-final before. I think it simply comes down to them coming up against a really, really strong team. And if there's one sort of silver lining in this result for Ireland, I know this is going to sting so much because you felt like it was starting to build. I felt like it was starting to build. After the Scotland game, I did a video saying, are Ireland now the World Cup favourites? It's hard to put anyone above them. I also said that this game would be a real challenge, as it proved to be. But the silver lining for the fans is I think this is an Irish team, an Irish coaching team, and an Irish system that has the building blocks in place to be able to continue to be successful going forward. I don't think this is necessarily the end of the road for them in the way that it may be for some other teams in this competition. And that's just the one thing I'd maybe say from an Ireland perspective. I know it's not going to make much difference right now and the pain that they'll all be feeling, but that is probably what I would cling on to. But overall, as I've said, I can put my notes down, I only made a few really. What an occasion, what an experience. It was a funny old game as well, because at first, the first couple of minutes of the game, which seemed like ages ago now, New Zealand had a couple of passes that didn't find hand. New Zealand had a couple of kicks that were pretty skew-whiff. Early on, you might remember, Geordie Barrett had a penalty which he hooked into touch, barely made any metres. And then you also had Ireland giving away some soft penalties, so it was a nervy game, but then eventually the quality shone through. Some of the attack from New Zealand, that Will Jordan try where they went off first phase from a line out was absolutely excellent. The fact that both teams put together those sort of 30 phases, 35 phases of play, and the other defence didn't even cough up a penalty, they just kept getting back up, kept recycling. Unbelievable match. A complete joy to be here. So I look forward to reading your comments. It's always kind of difficult in matches like this and afterwards. And I'm sure when I stop the video, I'll think of all sorts of other things that I wanted to mention and didn't mention and should have. But it's almost all such a blur. I mean, my heart was racing in that game, and I don't even support either of these two teams. I suppose one final thing I should say is Johnny Sexton and the end of his international career. He will be as gutted as anyone. And what a player. Just what a player, what a career he's had. It's gutting, isn't it? It's kind of like Dan Biggar in a way. You see him bow out with Wales and they bow out with a defeat and you feel absolutely gutted for them. But just brilliant from Johnny Sexton. A truly brilliant player. And I don't know, I'm sure once the dust settles, his career will be remembered in all its fondness. But that's kind of all from me. I think that was my main thoughts really as the fans continue to filter out. An excellent Ireland team, but they came up against the best All Blacks performance in years. All Blacks fans, let me know. When was the last time the All Blacks played that well? It felt like they had been waiting for that game. They've been building towards that game. That's what it felt like to me anyway. So comment down below, make sure you like the video and also subscribe to the channel. Let's get us over 10,000 subs after and post this video. I'll really appreciate that one. I'm gonna get my thoughts together, gather myself, and maybe tomorrow I'll do a more considered on this match. So I'll see you in the next one.